Let me preface this by saying that when this happened, I realize I'm an idiot. The biggest, most naive idiot in the world. I thought that because I had lived in so many countries and seen so many cultures, that I was smarter than I was, and more grown-up than my peers. God, was I wrong. I should have seen the red flags and booked it out of there. So, when this story takes place, I'm 14 and attending a boarding school in Connecticut. I'm female, by the way. My family is in Switzerland, so I only see them on school holidays. I'm going through my emo phase, moody and pissed at the mainstream and hating how preppy my school is. I make friends with most of the non-mainstream kids I could find there. At age 22, I still cringe at my past self. One of my friends was dating this townie who wanted to be a tattoo artist, and boy, did I want a tattoo, and I couldn't wait to turn 18. He agreed to tattoo me as he was just learning and didn't have his license, so what harm could happen? Side note, I now have a terrible tattoo, but I digress. We talk and agree that I'll take the bus to Waterbury and meet him on the green, where all the buses meet and transfer, because I had no idea about the layout of the area as I stayed in the campus bubble. If you don't know, Waterbury CT has its nice parts, but where I was gross. Shootings happen regularly, crackheads abound. It's not a good part of town, but back then I didn't care. I thought it would be fine. So it's Saturday. I just finished classes. Yeah, we had Saturday classes. And I'm all excited about getting this tattoo and being edgy. I jump on the bus and text my friend's boyfriend that I'm on my way. Fast forward a little and I'm at the green, waiting for him to get out of his classes. He texts me to say he'll be an hour late. Great. What the hell am I supposed to do in this shitty part of town alone? 2 hours pass and he says he'll be done in an hour. I really wanted this tattoo, so I just decided to wait. I had been sitting there for probably 2.5 hours when I noticed this big black SUV pull up and park in the bus drop-off zone. This big black guy comes out. The windows are tinted, so I don't know if he's alone, and he just sits right next to me. There were loads of empty benches, but he chose the one I was on. Huge red flag. I'm dressed in a band t-shirt, black skinny jeans with Converse, weird colors in my hair, and the usual emo regalia. Nothing was revealing, but I stuck out pretty plainly. I thought he just wanted to talk to me because I was different. Again, I'm a total idiot. He then starts asking me what I'm doing here, where I'm from, and how old I am. Because I thought I could take on the world, I boldly told him I was just 14, but more mature than people my age, blah 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 blah. Then, things got weirder. His eyes light up when I say my age, and he asks me if I'm a virgin and if I've ever given anyone a blowjob. This is where I panic. I stutter and my face gets red. He just laughs and puts his hand on my thigh and squeezes. He says I could jump in his car and he'd treat me right and bring me right back in a few hours. I don't know what to do or say. I'm looking around for an adult, but there was a lull and no buses were there. The man tries to pull me closer to him, and I'm terrified.
Baby girl, it'll only be a few hours. Let me show you how a real man does it. Ever had a black dick before? Once you go black, you never go back.
He laughs a deep laugh after this and stares right at me. I lose it at this point. I'm nauseous and about to cry. He sees this and smiles even more, clearly enjoying how uncomfortable I am. He then gets up and starts pulling my arm to get me up and steer me to his car. I try to resist, but it's a 5'8", 140-pound girl against a 6'2", 250-pound man. He starts to get aggressive when I resist, and is really pulling me along. I'm almost halfway to his car when I hear someone yell, "Hey, get away from her!" The black man lets me go and books it to his car, peeling off like he's being chased by the police. He probably thought it was the police, to be honest. I look at who saved me, and it's a bus driver who was waiting for his shift to start and watching us from the nearby Dunkin's. I just fall to the ground and sob. I've never been approached by anyone like this. Never been so close to God knows what awful thing this man could have done to me. I was so helpless. The bus driver calls the police and reports the incident, giving a partial of the plate and a description. I tried my best to give a description of the guy, but I was in such a shock I don't think I was very useful. I didn't hear anything from it later, so I assumed they didn't find the guy. In the end, I take another bus back to school, and don't tell anyone I was nearly abducted and raped, or worse. I couldn't stand to have them think I was weak, or couldn't care for myself, and I was so embarrassed by what I had gotten myself into, so I didn't tell anyone until a year ago. I'm back in that part of the world, and told one of my high school friends when we drove past that exact spot what had happened, and she was shocked. I realized just how indebted I am to that bus driver who literally saved me from at least being abducted. Who knows what that man had in store for me if he got me into his SUV. I ended up meeting with my friend's boyfriend the weekend after, and he made up some bullshit excuse for not meeting me at the agreed upon time, giving me a fake apology. I was so pissed at him after the terrible tattoo he gave me, I decided to never talk to him again. This happened to me several months ago during the summer. I had just graduated high school, but I didn't have my driver's license yet. I was just a teenage girl who was more focused on finishing my last year of high school than learning to drive anyway. My parents were out of town for the week, so I was supposed to be staying home to watch the house and pets. However, my friend and I had plans to have a sleepover and get smoothies the day my parents left, so I put on my favorite dress and gathered my purse and bus pass. I called my mom to tell her where I would be that night. She, of course, finishes with "stay safe," and with that, I hung up and made my way to the bus stop nearest my house. After I boarded the bus, I sat on my seat quietly and texted my friend, excited about the plans we had made. The bus was crowded and sticky from the summer heat, but I was too eager to care. A few stops before the one I needed to get off at, a man entered the bus. The man had shaggy, messy, whitish-gray hair and stubble on his chin. He was wearing blue hospital scrubs. He shuffled onto the bus, dragging one foot slightly. He then stopped and made direct eye contact with me. It felt like an eternity locked in a dead gaze with this strange man. He finally looked away and made his way to the seat directly behind me. I just knew he was going to do that the second we locked eyes. He wasted no time putting his hands through the hole between the backrest and the metal bar that lined the head of my seat. His hands dangled behind my neck, and if I had tried to lean back in my seat comfortably, I would have been on them. I felt this thick, heavy breath circle my neck and shoulders. At the very next stop, I flew out of my current seat and pretended to retrieve one of the bus route pamphlets directly behind the driver. I then sat in the seat right behind the bus driver to escape the creepy man who was still watching me. I pretended to read the pamphlet, trying not to seem as though I was trying to get away from him. But then, I knew it was coming. The man moved closer to my new location at the next stop. I could feel his eyes boring into me. At this point, I'd had enough of his little song and dance. It was not my stop to get off of yet, but I couldn't take this intense stare any longer. His close proximity was agonizing to me. I pulled the yellow cord to signal I wanted to get off. It was only one stop ahead of the one I needed to get off at originally, so I didn't think it was too inconvenient. I would have only had to walk through one more intersection anyway. As the bus driver pulled to a stop, I launched out of my seat and off the bus as fast as I could. And there it was, the feeling I knew would return. The feeling he would just so happen to get off with me. And he did. I walked quickly in the direction of my destination with a prayer in my head. I had my phone in my hands the whole time, texting my friend. I had dialed 911 too, and was ready to hit call. Suddenly, I heard it. The sound of shuffling and feet scraping against the asphalt. I knew it was coming from the one leg the man dragged as he walked. I turned around to see him running at me. He had his arms out towards me, and was working extra hard to pick up his limp left leg to catch up to me. His breathing was even more labored and raspy. I ran as fast as I could down the busy street. However, I was surprised nobody seemed to notice a young girl being chased by a middle-aged man in a hospital dress. I ran into a nearby shop that sells skateboards and the like. As I burst into the shop, out of breath and panting, the young man working at the register asked me, "Hi, how are you?" I answered very weakly, I'm fine, I think, but I'm being chased. Can I please hide here until I can call my friend to come get me? He looked shocked at my response. My hands were shaking very hard, so he led me over to the back of the store and sat me down. I explained what had happened, and he waited with me as I called my friend. Some time passed before she finally got to me. The man from the bus was nowhere to be found, and we just went home together. We were both terrified and looking over our shoulders the rest of the way home. I still regret not calling the police. This happened about 4 years ago, somewhere in the month of July. I was a 19-year-old boy on vacation away with his family in Charleston, South Carolina. My home is in Atlanta, and I decided to leave the beach early so I could spend a weekend free with my girlfriend. My parents refused to drive back, so my only alternative was a midnight ride on a Greyhound bus all the way to Atlanta. My parents dropped me off at the bus station with a printed ticket in hand. I waited for the bus for a while. I had arrived before midnight, of course, so I got to chat with some of the people waiting. The people seemed cool. A little sketchy. I'm not sure if you want detail, but this one lady who had a very loose and unashamed mouth told me of her former crack addiction and prostitution. Thanks for telling me, I thought to myself. But nothing like what I was going to encounter later. When it came time to board the bus and leave, I got on the bus with my backpack and got on. The bus was a typical coach bus with 2 seats on each side of the aisle, a strip of lights on the ceiling, and an ugly carpet pattern on the floor. I walked to the middle and took a seat to the window on the right side. When the bus started moving, the lights turned off as we began our journey. I whip out my cell phone and start texting my girlfriend. We talked about what we were going to do this weekend, talked about each other's day and stuff like that, until she eventually told me goodnight, and I went to playing games on my phone until it eventually died. We made a stop in Columbia, South Carolina. And the lights turned on, making me more alert. I noticed only one passenger get on the bus. As he walked up the aisle, I noticed 2 things in the light that didn't strike me as odd until later. His eyes were glazed and bloodshot, and they were scanning the aisles left and right. Another thing is that he looked to be someone who had been in the military. He was well built, and about his late 20s or early 30s. Anyway, he walked up the aisle and looked at the seat behind me, and I looked away and forgot about him as he sat in the aisle seat behind me. The lights turned off again, and we were mobile. In the dark bus, I was leaning my head against the glass with my eyes closed. It wasn't until somewhere around 15 to 20 minutes that I opened my eyes as we were passing street lamps down a dead street, illuminating the darkness briefly for a few seconds. My eyes glanced at the window behind me, and they did a double take. It looked like the man behind me was glaring at me, with an extremely angry expression on his face. I glanced again a few seconds later, and noticed that this guy really was glaring at me, and I wasn't imagining it. I felt really uneasy and unsafe, as I was somewhere unfamiliar, and was completely alone. I certainly wasn't a big guy. I'm only 5'7" and 160 pounds. This guy was well over 6 feet and 200 pounds, and currently, for some reason, out for me at this moment. I tried to think of reasons why he would look so upset with me. Had I offended him in some way? I thought to myself. He was literally staring me down like he was about to shoot a beam out of his eyes and explode the back of my skull. I couldn't pay no mind because every time I glanced over, he was still glaring at me. I knew something was definitely off about this guy. This went on for who knows how long, because my phone was dead, which meant I had no one to contact and no one knew where I was. Suddenly the man gets up and moves to sit directly across from me in the aisle seat. I noticed that his dead, glazed eyes never left me. He stared at me for a few minutes in the darkness, and I looked straight, trying not to make eye contact with this guy, being afraid of what he might do.
"Where are you going?"
said the man in a demanding voice. I gasped silently, startled by his voice and intrusiveness, but I didn't want to piss him off. "My family is waiting for me in Atlanta," I said, making sure I told him I was expected. He said nothing, but continued staring, now blankly. I began to look away when he spoke again.
I'm on my way to Indiana. I have a little trouble with some warrants.
At this point, I wanted nothing to do with this man. He wasn't easing my fear, but freaking me out even more.
Want to feel good?
The man asked. Digging in a baggie, I noticed several different types of pills that he began holding out to me, insisting that I take them, and I kindly refused. He glared at me like he was going to force me to take them, but then his expression changed back to an emotionless stare. With my luck, briefly after that terrifying moment, the bus stopped and the lights turned on. The bus driver called out if anyone wanted to get off and go to the bathroom, and coincidentally, I was about to shit myself, and I didn't want to stay on the bus with this creepy man any longer. I pushed the door to the bathroom open, and I walked past the wall urinals and got in the first out of 2 stalls in the bathroom. I did my business and was about to finish when I heard the door open and close. I could hear footsteps making their way to the stalls, and they stopped right in front of my stall and became absolutely quiet. Through the cracks, I could see someone, but in my heart, I already knew who it was. My thoughts were interrupted by a loud bang on my stall door, causing me to let out a terrified scream, and they banged louder. He kept slamming the door, not saying anything, and I scrambled all the way to the back of the toilet with my pants down. Suddenly, the banging stopped, and everything was silent. I peeked through the crack, and he was gone. As I was getting my pants done, I saw something that will haunt me for the rest of my life. I looked down at the floor of the stall next to me, and there he was, crawling under the stall, staring at me with those glazed, bloodshot eyes. I kicked the stall open and ran out of the bathroom at Olympic speed, making it back to the bus where the man was gone, and he never came back, nor did I ever see him again. Hey there guys, it's Blue Spooky as always. I just wanted to thank you all for watching, especially if you made it to the end right here. Now, I know that I was only able to get out 2 videos this week, and that's because there's been a lot of stuff going on with school starting again, and a lot of collabs going on with other YouTube channels, so I hope you guys can understand. We'll get back to the 3 to 4 videos a week schedule pretty soon here. I just gotta wait for all this outside stuff to settle out. As always, if you guys enjoyed the video or if you have any constructive criticism, be free to leave a comment and like and subscribe if you want to see more of the channel stuff. And also, if you have any stories that you want me to read, or if you have any personal stories that you want to send in for me to read, you can send them to my Facebook, Gmail, or Twitter accounts. All of those social media links will be in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.